Hello and welcome to this webinar. So the topic of the day is to show you our training platform and to give you an overview on one new module, which is the GDPR for clinical research professionals. So at MyData-TRUST, our mission is to support life science organizations to be compliant with data protection regulations and of course to protect their patients' data. This mission is carried out by the DPO, so the data protection officers, and one of their many tasks is to raise data protection awareness within the organization they are in charge of. And by the way, this is an obligation according to the GDPR. And to fulfill this obligation, we have chosen the simple solution for the DPO and for the participants, e-learning. And we used to say that it's a AAA solution because it gives autonomy, actionability, and accountability. Autonomy because participants learn at their own pace when and where they want. It's a 24/7 solution, always available. And for the DPO, there is no stress at all. No need to find a trainer, neither to find and book a room, neither to find the ultimate time slot that suits all the participants' agenda. It's an easy game. The second A is probably the most important. It's actionability. We all know that putting knowledge into practice facilitates learning. This is precisely what we do in this course. We illustrate the GDPR implementation with concrete examples. This way, the participants know how to apply their knowledge in their daily work. They are converting their knowledge into competencies. In short, this training is made by and for clinical research professionals. The last A is a well-known key concept of the regulation. It's accountability. You must be able to prove everything you have in place. To do so, at the end of the courses, participants get a certificate of completion that demonstrates the data protection awareness raising in their organization. Last but not least, besides the accountability, certificates are also a kind of mastery recognition and therefore a motivation for the participants. This being said, let's take a tour in the site. The first thing to do when you need to raise data protection awareness is to know the basics. To do so, we have a course dedicated to beginners, the Introduction to the GDPR. This should be your very first step, a prerequisite for all modules. In this page, like for other courses, we'll first find the learning objectives, then who should attend the training. Here it's for everybody, of course, because it gives you the basics of the GDPR, and then the program, where you will find a brief description of the courses. By the way, this large audience course is available in 5 languages. Now, if I get back to the GDPR for clinical research professionals, I can see the learning objectives, which are raising awareness on data protection in clinical teams, understanding how GDPR applies to clinical research, it's kind of contextualization, knowing the role and responsibilities of clinical research professionals, and finally, knowing the roadmap to design a GDPR-compliant clinical study. Who should attend? You may have guessed it, for all the clinical staff, and I would say even for the DPO who doesn't feel very comfortable with this very specific subject, and because it's always better to know the level of awareness raised by the course within your organization. If the participants already know the basics of the GDPR, you can easily take the course. Otherwise, you can acquire this by taking the Introduction to the GDPR courses. Now, regarding the content, we start briefly with the key concept of the regulation applied to clinical research and then move to the core of the course, which is applying them in the context of clinical studies. I will give you more details later in this presentation. As you probably are very interested in this training, you will ask for a quote and fill this little form. Give your name, John Doe, my email, GDPR John Doe at gmail.com, my phone, my company, The subject is I want a quote, of course. How many people in my organization? We are 70. Which course I'm interested in? Of course, Introduction to the GDPR, GDPR for clinical research personnels. And well, data security might be interesting if I would like to avoid any data breach in my organization. Language English. We do have a learning management system. And well, no need to write down a message. Hi, I need a quote. I send it. I get the acknowledgement. I already have the answer from the sales guy. Hello, I'm Gauthier. Well, okay, the GDPR for clinical research professional is 175 per person. Introduction to the GDPR 145. Data security 95. And cool, we have rebate for more than 10%, and from 100%, there is a kind of licensing of modules, but well, I will first take for my 70 people and discuss this later on. So I've been enrolled. I received my email with my credentials. My username is my email address. I have my temporary password, and I go to the learning platform. So my username is already filled in because I already logged in previous session. It's just my email address. I paste my temporary password and land on the dashboard of the e-learning platform. Here you can find the different training I've been enrolled in, and the different parameter. I can change the language and other stuff, but this is not really important. Let's visit the GDPR for clinical research professionals. The first line is the course itself. You have an empty box here, not checked yet, just because I did not finish the course. The quiz is great on because you need to finish the course before taking the quiz. And of course, if I didn't pass the quiz, I don't have my certificate yet. So now if I click here, I enter into the training, and oops, as you can see, I land here in the page where I left the training the last time. But let me first present you Kim, or avatar.
Hello and welcome to the GDPR in Clinical Research training. My name is Kim.
Okay, let's start the course and see the objectives.
At the end of this module, you will be able to understand how GDPR applies to clinical research, know your role and responsibilities as a clinical research professional, know the roadmap to design a GDPR-compliant clinical study, how to navigate during this presentation. At the bottom of the slide, you will find buttons to help you easily navigate the presentation. In the lower right corner of the slide, a preview button allows you to go back to the previous slide. A next button brings up the next slide. In the lower left corner of the slide, you can adjust the volume of my voice and pause the presentation whenever you need to. Press play when you are ready to restart the presentation. All right. Once you're ready to get to the heart of the matter, press the button Next.
Okay, and let's have a quick overview of the course itself, the part 1.
This course will be divided into 2 parts. Let's start with the first one, Key Concepts Applied to Clinical Research. Here we go.
Now we go deeper in the course. Okay, let's begin this.
Health research uses data at all stages, from bench and basic research, throughout all stages of clinical research at patients' bedside and even later, while transposing research results into community and healthcare standards. Traditional data collection and prospective research is supported by translational research, data from population-based registries, real-life data, and big data, etc. Personal data are used throughout almost all steps. Case studies in this training focus on clinical research.
And let's see an illustration of the different examples that will be presented in.
What are the roles of each stakeholder? Let's start with Danube, our sponsor. What is its role? Danube takes responsibility for the initiation, management, and financing of the trial, so that it defines the means and purposes of conducting it. Danube is the data controller. Patients and study staff, researchers and other professionals involved in the study are data subjects, as the personal data are their data. The global CRO, DSMB, drug supplier and the laboratory are processing data on the request of Danube. They are data processors. Experts from DSMB only look at the data and provide their advice, but in the view of GDPR, this makes them data processors. Competent authorities and ethics committees have their own role to play. Their mission is defined by the legislation. They are independent controllers in the scope of their own mission. What is the role of clinical sites? For French sites, these are processors. For Italy, the sites are controllers, as sites would process personal data contained in the patient's medical file for the purpose of treating patients, and not just for the clinical trial. So, from this point of view, they have their own mission in a way independent from the trial sponsor. In Spain, sites are either processors or independent controllers, depending on the region they are based in. Some other countries, not invited to our case study, such as the Netherlands, think both missions cannot be clearly separated and considers sites and sponsors as joint controllers. In conclusion, the characterization of GDPR roles is not an easy exercise and requires knowledge of many documents, guidances and practices. The medical journal is not cited in this example, as they were not involved with processing personal data. They only received anonymous data. However, if our journal would have requested a copy of the coded dataset to corroborate the study results, they would have become a data processor.
So, as you can see, all the actors are put in place with regard to the GDPR. Now, let's take a look in the second part of the training. And take a look at the GDPR requirements in a clinical trial.
Okay. Once you have passed your 3 general preparatory steps to GDPR compliance, you will have to consider all of the GDPR requirements throughout the clinical study process, from the design and conduct of the study to its archiving. Once your study is designated and approved, your study will be able to start. That means you will have the first patient in. During the study conduct, you may wish to amend your protocol several times. You may perform interim analyses, and unfortunately, you may even have GCP breaches that you will record and possibly report. Once you complete recruitment and have the results, you will compile all your research in a report, publish your results or otherwise release them, and finally you will archive your trial master file for many years. Let's see what all this means from a GDPR perspective. Let's start with the first phase, the design of the study. What are the key steps? You can see on the slide the different parts of the phase design and preparation of the clinical trial. Click on each icon to see what it means from a GDPR perspective. Protocol needs to summarize how personal data and the confidentiality of participants are protected. It must reflect all the principles of GDPR as well: lawfulness, fairness and transparency, purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality. The clinical trial regulation, effective as of 2022, requires protocols to include specific elements with regards to GDPR compliance. To know more, click on CTR.
And to see the whole GDPR requirements in clinical trials, I'm afraid that you will have to take the course. So let's go to the end of this training and listen to...
This is the end of the training. We hope that Danube, Niagara and I have guided you through the pitfalls of GDPR in the scope of clinical research. Now you should be able to understand how GDPR applies to clinical research, know your role and responsibilities as a clinical research professional, know the roadmap to design a GDPR-compliant clinical study. The most important thing to remember is that GDPR in our sector is a full-time job. Do not hesitate to contact your DPO or ask for help to professionals with double expertise like MyData-TRUST. They are here.
Okay, let's suppose that I've completed the whole course and the checkbox is by magic checked. I can finally start the quiz. I click and then I discover the figures of the previous attempt. You have to know that you have 5 attempts to succeed to pass the quiz, but let's listen to Kim.
The final step is the quiz. It will help you to auto-assess your level of knowledge regarding the GDPR. Be careful, do not go to the quiz if you consider that you did not reach these objectives. Don't hesitate to go back to the presentation
And start the quiz. First question, what is the key role of the data protection officer in a clinical trial? GDPR defines the main mission of the DPO. Among those listed below, which are the main ones? Select the correct answer. Inform and advise. Okay. And raise data protection, of course. Okay. Define purpose and means of processing. No, that's not his role. Monitor compliance. Yeah. Cooperate with DPA, of course, the authorities. Advise on the impact assessment, of course. Manage the data, not his role, and act as a point of contact. Okay, let's try it. Bingo! Correct, that's right. As you can see here, you have the justification of the answer with all the details necessary to understand why you are right or why you are wrong. I will try this one. Select the correct statement. The sponsor is always recognized as data processor, third-party data controller. Up, up, up. Incorrect answer. As you can see, when the answer is incorrect, you have the correction on the left, so the right answer is explained in the text here. Now I can continue and go to the end. You have 10 questions to succeed, but I won't bother you with all the details. I will exit the activity and again, by magic, have successfully passed the quiz. Up. Now I can get my certificate. Now I can view my certificate by downloading it. It's a PDF, so it's readable by any computer. And as you can see, my name is John Doe. The course is GDPR for Clinical Research Professional. You have the date and the score, which is not really brilliant, but it's a certificate of completion, not a certificate of knowledge. Okay, now we can go back to the main menu, my dashboard, and see that the course is completed with the green bar here. So this is the end of the tour. I hope that you have now a good idea for elearning platform and especially your new module. Now, should you have any question, please raise your hand. Thank you.